Will NC State come to Clemson in September and beat the Tigers in Death Valley? That's a question we're going to talk about today. Welcome to Clemson Football Live. I am Brian. I'm glad you're here. I hope you'll subscribe. It's the easiest and cheapest way, it's free, to support the channel. I do appreciate it. The NC State Wolfpack is nestled perfectly in between Georgia and Florida State. And because they are nestled between Georgia, the opener in Atlanta, and Florida State, the fifth game of the year in Tallahassee, well, I don't want to say that people are forgetting NC State, but what I do want to say is, well, they're overlooking them to a point. Now, if you look at the games that NC State and Clemson's played over the past 20 years, the Tigers have won overwhelmingly. I mean, it's crazy. In fact, I'm looking at the Textile Bowl record. The last time that NC State beat Clemson in Clemson was October the 24th. It was a Thursday night game. I remember it like it was yesterday. They beat Clemson 38-6. There was a young man playing on that football team. You might have heard of him, Phillip Rivers. This was back in the Chuck Amato days. T.A. McClendon, freshman T.A. McClendon, rushed for 178 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. And it shocked everybody. This was back in the Willie Simmons quarterback days, the Justin Miller days at Clemson. The only score of the game, by the way, was Justin Miller returning the ball 80 yards for a touchdown. But other than that, when you look at the Textile Bowl, NC State has only beat, since 2002, NC State has beat Clemson 5 times since 2002. Other than that, the Tigers have dominated, whether the score was close or not. 5 times, only 5 times, has NC State won, and 1 time be in Clemson, which was over 20 years ago. Here's the interesting fact. The last 2 times that we've played NC State at home, which I know we're not playing them in, or let me rephrase that, away, the last 2 times that we played NC State in Raleigh, we lost. So you mean to tell me that out of those 5 wins that NC State has, 2 of them have came in the past 3 years? Sure, it was at NC State. Sure, it's difficult to beat Clemson. You have to remember that to beat Clemson is kind of, well, out of the question for a lot of teams. Since 2016, and that was the loss where Pittsburgh came in and beat Clemson, almost kept us out of the 14 playoff. Watson threw for well over 500 yards, if my memory serves me correct. Then the next loss would have been in 2022 when DJ and the boys lost to South Carolina by 1 point. And then, of course, last year, Florida State beat Clemson at home. What I'm trying to get across here is it's very difficult to beat Clemson at home. Now, some things have changed at Clemson, and I don't know how long we can keep that up. But if there's one team that could come to Clemson and beat Clemson in Clemson, how many times did I say Clemson? Clemson. It's NC State. You go, Brian, why? Get to the point, dude. Get to the point. Unfortunately, I am. I'm going to name out some players that's going to be playing for the NC State Wolfpack. Now, according to my research, and I don't have the Phil Steele book in front of me, which, by the way, I ordered the digital copy, and it should be here in June. Thank you. It makes it easier to navigate these teams. But according to my research, NC State returns 5 players on the offense and 5 players from the defense. But of those players that they've returned, there's some really talented guys. And then the transfer portal action. So I'm going to read off. This is from collegefootballnetwork.com talking about NC State Wolfpack. And by the way, I'm going to get an NC State YouTuber on here. I've been looking at a few different NC State YouTubers, and I'm going to reach out to them, ask them to come on the show and talk about NC State football, because This team right here could be the difference between Clemson having a 9-win season and a potential 10-win season. Let's just say, be very negative and say we lose to Georgia and we lose to Florida State. Well, one's a non-conference game, one's a conference game, so that would go against our record to get to the ACC championship, but we would still totally be in ACC championship contention. And the whole 10-win season and blah, blah, blah. But it's teams like NC State. I think NC State will be the toughest team that we play this year outside of Florida State and Georgia. It's kind of a duh statement. So who do they have coming back? Well, according to College Football Network, NC State's top returning players and additions via the transfer portal, Caden Fordham. Caden Fordham is a linebacker. This guy played for them last year. He had 53 tackles. He's coming back. Noah Rogers. Noah Rogers was from that whole, he was one of the top players in the state of North Carolina. He goes to Ohio State. And he transfers back home. So for a guy to be picked up by Ohio State out of the state of North Carolina, this guy's going to be talented. This guy has some abilities. And by the way, if there's anyone who's an NC State fan and you're like, well, one of these guys are injured, I don't know that. So please tell me if I'm missing something here. Wesley Grimes. This guy right here, he's transferring in from Wake Forest. He's tall. He can move. Red Hibbler. He's a JUCO transfer. So this guy can play. Devin Boykin. Okay, that name has been around for a while. Okay, he's been at NC State for like 4 years. And he's only getting better. So you have that seniority back there in the secondary. You need that. Zeke Corral, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Corral, I don't know. Transfers into Notre Dame after a year as Notre Dame starting center. That's interesting. Notre Dame always has good offensive linemen. In fact, they're incredible. So that's a big piece of the puzzle. Sean Brown, he's a linebacker. Now, the NC State Wolfpack, they're missing Peyton Wilson. Peyton Wilson was a really good story. The guy had injuries and everything. Now he's in the NFL. The guy can play. They're missing him, but Sean Brown is there. Devin Van, I think that's his name, has 14 career sacks. And he'll anchor the NC State defensive line as a fifth-year senior. Then we get to these two players. I'm going to switch them up in their order. Kevin K.C. Concepcion had an outrageous year for the NC State Wolfpack last year. This guy had 1,159 total yards and 10 touchdowns. He was named College Football Network Freshman Offensive Player of the Year. He's a very, very talented player. I mean, this guy is one of those guys, when he walks out on the field, you have to account for him. And even if you do, he can still get loose. And then you mix him in with Grayson McCall, the transfer quarterback from Coastal Carolina. A guy that I've been high on for a very, very long time. I've seen him play in person multiple times. 6'3", 220-ish pounds. The guy's thrown for over 10,000 yards already. And so you take that package and you bring it into Death Valley. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, Brian, you're always talking about Clemson's defense, that Clemson's defense, it has that it factor. You're right. You're 100% right. And Brian, Clemson's very tough to beat. You just gave the stat. They're tough to beat in Clemson. You're right. But if there is a team that is a home game that Clemson could lose, And then you factor in that it is perfectly, I believe it's the third game of the season. I'll have to pull up Clemson's schedule real quick. But I want to say that NC State is the third game of the season. Let me see. Clemson football schedule. I'm doing this live. I don't care. Clemson football schedule 2024. I'm pretty sure the third game of the season. They are the third game of the season. Yeah, I'm right. So you have Georgia, then you have Appalachian State, NC State, then Stanford, then Clemson. There's a bye week in there as well, in between Appalachian State and NC State. Now, that could work in Clemson's favor. That could help Clemson. Coming off of that Georgia and Appalachian State game, that could definitely work in Clemson's favor. But what I will say is that you have Georgia, then you have Florida State, and perfectly in the middle is the third game of the year, NC State. These guys can do it, folks. If Clemson's offense is coming out and they're laying a golden turd, and you have these freshman wide receivers running around and they're getting open, and everybody's putting the weight of the world on their shoulders, but for some reason, the offensive line can't hold long enough for Cade to get the ball out of his hands, and he's having to scramble and the plays breaking down. Or maybe we get turnover fumbleitis. Maybe we would try throwing the football in between three defenders and is shocked, silly when the defense intercepts it. That NC State offense jogs out there. And under the leadership of Grayson McCall, a guy who is tried and true, and that Clemson should have reached out to, but we're not going to do that. He and KC Concepcion and these other tools they've picked up either in the transfer portal or that's already there at NC State, I believe they are going to give Clemson a game. I would bet Clemson not to overlook this game. Of course we're not, Brian. We're not going to. It's the third game of the year. It's perfectly in between Georgia and Florida State to where you can be looking just enough back at that Georgia game according to how it goes. I think Georgia's going to beat Clemson commandingly. 2 touchdowns plus. And then they're going to be looking ahead to Tallahassee, playing their old buddy DJ. Trying to avenge the loss in the Valley. And maybe, just maybe, our old friend Dave Doran gets the last laugh. I'm going to get in here to the comment section. I'm going to say hello to a few people. It is my 36th anniversary today, so I may check early. Oh, well, happy anniversary, Big John Sutton. It is good to see you. Everybody see Big John in here? Big John has been supporting the channel for a very, very long time. And you see that circle beside his name? That means he is a member. $3 or $5 per month. You choose how you want to support the channel. I'm just a guy in his bonus room. I'm not, listen to me, folks. I'm not an expert. I'm not a Clemson football insider. I'm not at the practices. I'm just a guy who watches the team and sees how the team is coached, and on one side, the lack thereof. And then I just come out and I tell you what I see. And what's funny about it is, though I'm not on the sidelines at these practices, I end up nailing it. I mess up sometimes, obviously. I end up nailing it. I don't have anyone coming in here telling me what to and what not to say. I talk about this openly because that happens, folks. You don't talk about certain things in Clemson, South Carolina. I'm just a guy again. And again, I'm just a guy in his bonus room talking about the team I love. Big John Sutton, he has supported the channel. I appreciate it, Big John. Happy anniversary to you, sir. Philip Brister's in here. I hate NC State more than USC Junior. Fight me. Cohen Pope, this is the game I'm thinking about going to this year. Cohen Pope, I'm thinking about going to it as well, my friend. Still Gamble, who supports the channel. Thank you for supporting the channel. No, they're not. Big John Sutton dropping a $5 super chat or super thanks, whatever they're calling them this day. Thanks for doing that, man. You didn't have to do that. You support the channel on a monthly basis, and I appreciate that. Tigers by 50. Tigers by 50. I hope so. Winning games like this, even if you lose the Georgia and the Florida State game, which we don't want to do, you don't want to lose a game. But, I always come back to how you lose a game. Do you lose the game because the other team was just better than you? Or do you lose it because of coaching malfeasance? That's a big deal. We lost that South Carolina game 2 years ago, coaching malfeasance. Just, there we go. But these are the games right here that you need to win to keep that 10-win season in play and potentially get into the conference championship. How many of those wins against NC State were closer than they should have been? A lot of them. Go look at the Textile Bowl. You can pull it up on Wikipedia. Almost none. We typically cover the spread. I don't trust Clemson's offense. Yeah, Mike, 38-83. That no realistic Clemson fan really does. They have their favorite players like Phil Maffa who can come out and do great things. And they like Jake Brennan-Stoll, and they're looking forward to those wide receivers coming in. And some of the wide receivers that's coming back, I hope Antonio Williams is healthy and he does his thing. And, of course, Tyler Brown was a star last year. Hope Stellato can stay healthy. Adam Randall has had physical issues. We all hope that. But, my friend, I'm with you. Philip Brister, supporting the channel $5 per month. Philip, you didn't have to do that, man. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it. And you said, I'm giving $4.99. I took a penny off because his hat is on backwards. Thank you. Thank you for supporting the channel. I'm going to go on down here. Let's see. John Dry, Texas Tech fan here. I hope Clemson wins the ACC. Thanks, my friend. Or Louisville. We'll keep going down through here. And then, folks, this is one of the funniest things that Ruby Ridge has trending on my channel is this. Cole Turner. He's always talking about Cole Turner. And I know what you're doing. You're taking a shot at Dabo. Always talking about Cole Turner. We could have Randy Moss out there playing for us. He better enroll straight off. He better not be a transfer. We're not taking Randy Moss if he's a transfer. He's not good enough to play at Clemson. But if Cole Turner doesn't play, okay. That's hilarious. Folks, tell me what you think. NC State, are they one of those games that could they do it? It's not can they do it because Bobby Dodd said anybody. No, I'm talking about they legitimately have a chance. Like Tim Russell put on my board the other day, and I loved it, and I'm going to keep talking about this. Hope is not a strategy to win the football game. Trust me, it is not. It is not. So if your whole thing is have some hope, bad strategy. Ask Nick Saban how many championships he won off of hope. Maybe one? Maybe none? Leave your comments below. Hope you'll support the channel. Also, remember, I'm part of the College Huddle. The College Huddle, actually, Eric Boggs, I need to reach out to him and let him know. I read an article he wrote on one of my videos from a couple of months ago. Did a great job. And I read it. So check out the College Huddle. Just Google it and check out the article they wrote about me. Check out on the topic, and then check out my site over there. You can just access it. Anyway, let them know that you heard about them from me. As always, it's good to be a Tiger. Go Tigers.